Thank you for joining us at our workshop today. We are going to talk about registering and voting in a federal election. This is important because a federal election was just announced. It will be on April 28th. Let's get started. We are recording this webinar today in English so that we can share this on our website. So if you're not comfortable being recorded, you can just turn your camera off. Thanks. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. We are meeting online and doing this webinar from different parts of Canada, but we still want to understand and recognize the importance of the land that we all call home. Thank you. Let's start with some introductions. My name is Chris, and I'm the second vice president. Donna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Donna Brown, and I am the president of People vs. Canada, and I live in New Brunswick.
We also have Monica on the line to help share information and Carmen to help keep track of chat. Please just let us know if we're talking too fast or you want us to repeat something or clarify something.
People First is working with Elections Canada to share election information. We just want to support everyone to get out and vote. People labeled with an intellectual or developmental disability have the same right to vote as anyone else. We are going to share more about how you can do that. There are many ways to get involved in an election. Getting involved in an election is important. You can run as candidate. You can work for Election Canada. Another way to get involved is by voting. Let's start by asking if anyone here ever voted in an election. Please raise your hand. All right. So question, why do you think it is important to vote? Yes, Kevin.
Sorry, I don't have headphones, but I think it's important to vote to have my uh, voice heard and see who I think is going to be the best person.
Thank you, Kevin. Jonathan.
Not only that, but also, hold on, make sure I do this right. Okay, and also, everybody does have their own opinion, but you also have to know that your opinion means something even more if you're voting at the same time, so that it's not just you saying it. Oh, I don't think they should be in charge. A vote means that you're trying to say this is who I believe has the best values for what I want.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anyone else? Why do you think voting is important? What about you, Millie? Why is voting is important? All right. Anyone else? What about you, Willa and DJ? Oh, yes, Monica.
I was just going to say the things that everybody said are great reasons, first of all, why voting is important. And some of the things that make it important, we might even talk about today. And so I think maybe we'll even ask the question again at the end and see, maybe we could ask people to think about that while we're talking and think about why it's important to you. And if they're not sure with an answer right now, we could always come back to that.
Sure. Thank you, Monica. We'll go to Willa and DJ.
Okay. why is it important to vote? It everybody has a right to vote, and it's right. And if you don't vote, you don't have a say on what takes place in Canada.
Okay.
Thank you, Binley TJ. This is the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This document says that every Canadian citizen is guaranteed the right to vote in Canada if they are at least 18 years old. So Canadians have the right to vote, and it's up to us to use that vote and have our voice heard. In a federal election, we are voting for a member of parliament or an MP. Usually, the party that has the most MPs elected in the country gets to have their leader become the Prime Minister of Canada. Over 18 million Canadians voted in the 2019 federal election, and more than 17 million voted in 2021. How many of us here today voted in the last federal elections? Raise your hands. All right, thank you. That's great. We hope that even more people vote this time and that all of us here today get out and vote.
Some of the barriers to voting can be a lack of information about the voting process, a feeling of not knowing enough to participate, not having the right ID, not understanding the options for voting. We are going to talk about these barriers today and hopefully give you the information you need to feel comfortable voting. Here are 3 main ways we can all get involved in a federal election. 1, we can become a candidate. You can run for a position in your community if you want to. 2, we can work at the elections. You can apply for a job with Elections Canada. 3, we can vote for a candidate in our riding. Elections Canada usually hires and pays almost 2 million election workers during every general election to make sure it runs smoothly and fairly. They do offer training, and the training is also paid. If anyone is interested in applying to work for Elections Canada, please go to their website at www.electionscanada.ca. You can apply online or over the phone. They have different positions and times for working, and they are looking for lots of people to work for them this year. Voting is another way to be involved in a federal election. Here you see a People First member in Newfoundland casting her vote in a pop-up voting activity.
Who can vote? To register and vote in the federal election, you have to be a Canadian citizen, be at least 18 years old on election day, be able to prove your identity and address. If this describes you, then you can vote. How do I find the name of my riding and the list of candidates running for my office in my riding? A riding or an electoral district is what we call the voting area you live in. If you want to find out which riding you live in, you can visit Election Canada website at www.elections.ca. 2. Type in your postal code. It will give you the name of your electoral district. Also, how many other people live in this riding? When the election is called, it would also have a list of candidates running in your district. It would also give you the address of the place where you go to vote. How do I prove my identity and address? When you vote, you have 3 options to prove your identity and address. So option 1 Show just one a piece of ID, your driver's license, your provincial or territorial ID card or passport, or any other government card with your photo, name, and current address. Option 2. If you don't have those, you can still use other things to prove who you are. You can show two pieces ID. Both must have your name and at least one must have your current address. For example, you could use a voter information card and a bank statement or a credit card bill or utility bill. If you don't have any of these, that's still okay. There are other pieces of identification accepted.
What can I use to prove my identity? You can use things like birth certificate, social insurance card, library card, healthcare card, credit or debit card, student ID card, Indian status card. One of them has to have your address on it. There is a full list of different options for identification on the Elections Canada website. Option 3. If you don't have identification with your address on it, you can still vote. You can get someone to vouch for you. This means they promise that you are who you say you are. All you need for this is bring 2 pieces of ID with your name on it and a neighbor or a friend or staff who can vouch for where you live. This person must also have proof of ID and address and live in the same riding as you. A person vouching for you has to be eligible to vote and have proper ID that proves their identity and address. Or if you live in a group home or other care facility, you can get a letter called confirmation of residence. This will help you prove your address when you vote. Does anyone have any questions about what IDs to use? Who is that? I can't see.
Charles.
Charles. Go ahead, Charles.
And I was at a polling station before, and isn't there there's different IDs for Indigenous people too, right?
Yeah. The status ID card?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions before we move on?
Yeah, Chris, the only problem is, as you were pointing out, the information types of ID, there's only one problem. Certain things like Medicare cards, for example, do not have an address.
So
And-
just one of the pieces ID have to have an address. The second
But-
doesn't have to. So that's
I
why they
tried-
named some of them as a second piece. Does that make sense? So one has to have the address and you need 2 pieces. So the second one doesn't have to have the address, just your name on it.
But what I'm saying is, like, your what is it? Hospital cards,
Yeah,
have an address, but not a photo. Your
Yeah.
Medicare card has a photo on it, but no address. You see where the complication there is?
but using both of those would work though, together.
Because they refused one of them one time at a provincial one, I think.
Now
They
federal
They
federal
refused.
federal and
Mhm.
provincial are different rules. So we're just talking federal here.
Nah,
rules. So yeah, provincials are a little different. So
yeah, that's
yeah.
for sure.
So yep. Okay, any other questions? Do you see any, Donna? Any hands up or anything?
No.
Okay,
Kevin.
Kevin?
Charles has his hand up. Is that from last time, Charles, or a new question?
New question.
New question? Okay, go ahead, Charles.
And in Nova Scotia, you need to remember because I just found this out myself when I went to go get a new photo ID. They do not put your address on your photo IDs anymore in Nova Scotia.
That's interesting. So yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're trying to use ID. So yeah. Um, I'm not seeing people's names.
There's
Uh,
Kevin, then after
and
that, Kimberly.
I saw Kimberly.
yeah, so we'll go to Kevin first. So Kevin, go ahead.
I'm just surprised that you can use like a student ID card.
So like if you're a student at a university or a college, you're not where you normally would live. So yeah, so that proves that you're in that area. So that's why they allow those. Okay, and then Kimberly.
Yes, somebody called me today and said we're able to vote, but I don't have a voter's card yet.
And
And
yeah, those should be coming in the mail anytime soon. And even if you don't get a voter's card, you can still vote with some of those other IDs that we said.
but I didn't think we could vote until that day.
Yeah. Monica, do you know if there's advanced voting?
So yeah, those are all really good points. And we're actually going to cover voter registration cards and advanced polling. I think they're just starting to make announcements for that right now too. And
Okay.
Kimberly, even if you do have your registration card, you still need ID. They won't use that as ID. It just helps them make it faster. That's all it does, really.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna go on now.
Mhm.
Voting registration cards. When the election is called, many people are sent a voter registration card. It comes in the mail and it's like a postcard. Now that the election is called here in Canada, we can start looking for these in the mail. Question, has anyone here ever gotten one of these in the mail before? A show of hands? Yeah. Your voter registration card shows you where you go to vote, where you can find advanced polling stations, contact information for Elections Canada, how accessible your polling station will be. If you have a registration card, it'll make voting faster. If you do not have one, don't worry, you can still vote. On the screen is an example of a voter registration card. This is one side of the registration card, and it has your name and address. It also has the date of the election. The other side of the voter registration card tells you where to go to vote. It tells you the date and address of your polling station. It also tells you where to go for advanced polling. These are times you can vote ahead of the main election day. At the bottom, it tells you whether your polling station is accessible. The card on the screen shows us that the polling station is wheelchair accessible. If the polling station is not accessible, you can call Elections Canada and they can let you go to a different one, but you have to call ahead of time. Does anybody have any questions about voter registration cards? And again, I can't see people, darn it all. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah. So if you don't get your card in the mail, you can still go down, but you wouldn't know
Yes.
where to go. That's the thing.
So you can go on their website and type in your postal code and it'll show you where to go to vote. So if you don't get the voter's card, you can use their website, Elections Canada's website.
Is it Willa? Is that you, Willa? Willa and TJ, it says?
Yeah, it can go ahead.
My question is I just moved over to Cameron Avenue this last summer, but I haven't done a chance to do my taxes yet. And where would be my poll and like
I can help you with that. TJ,
Yeah.
they know.
Do you know where my
They're not in Nova Scotia.
No.
But that's
poll
a
and be at?
great question because we do move. We're not always in the same spot. And I don't know the answer to that one.
So with the move and not having done taxes, it would be that he would still put in the postal code where he lives and would show evidence of his move. So if he has like a utility bill or stuff in his name, he could use that. And there's some other options where if you live with somebody that you don't have any of the utilities in your name, you could still have them write a letter and stuff, like as if in a group home, the landlord can vouch for you and stuff and write a letter if you're paying to a landlord. I think there's a few other options there too. So yeah,
All right,
We'll
thank
figure-
you.
you're welcome.
Charles, did you have?
I actually went to the polling office down here in Nova Scotia by me, where I live, to the office, and I actually go in for training on Monday, and to work the federal election. And they told me today there are advanced polls are going to be everywhere down here, and it's probably the same for wherever you guys are for advanced polls before the election. So it's probably going to be the same for everywhere. If that helps at all.
Yep. And that's exciting that you're working for Elections Canada.
I know,
Congratulations.
Right? I used to work like the elections before, but it's been probably 8 or 9 years since I've worked one. So I'm kind of excited.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Any other questions? Not seeing any. We'll move on. Your turn, Donna.
All right. Let's talk about accessible polling stations. Accessibility is very important. It's not just about having wheelchair access, even though that can be a very important. Elections Canada offers many tools and services to make voting in the federal election easier. There are accessibility tools and services you can access at the polling station. During a federal election, these are the tools and services that are available. Magnifier with light, voting screen that lets in an extra light. On the screen, someone holding a magnifier that you can hold. If you ask for this, your polling station should provide you with it. They also have a bigger ballots and candidate names in large print and braille, and large grip pencil. Or you can bring your own pencil from home. You can also request sign language interpretation, but you have to call Elections Canada ahead of time to ask for this. If you need to help mark your ballot, you can bring a support person to help. This could be a family member, friend, or personal support worker. To protect the secrecy of your vote, it will ask this person to take an oath before you vote. On screen, you can see one People First member filling out a practice ballot. Their advisor is there to support them. Election workers can also assist you if you need help marking your ballot. You can ask the staff at the polling station for help. If you do that, they always have a second election worker present to act as a witness. Yes, the accessibility tools are meant to help people feel more comfortable voting. And if you need support, you can be supported. Please don't be afraid to ask for help at the polling station. So does anyone have any questions about accessibility? Yes, Kevin?
Don't have a question. I do have a concern though, because when I go and vote, I never see any of this braille or the magnifying glass or any of that there when I go. Like I don't need it, but I just don't see it, and that's kind of a concern.
Yeah, it's really concerned about it. They should always have the accessibility tools for people to vote. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, Monica?
I'm just going to add something to that answer. I agree that it's sometimes hard to find. So what they say is go to the election staff and say, hey, I need this. They won't offer it unless you're asking. So that's why we tell people what's available so that if you feel you need that, go and ask. Now, if they don't have it and you ask, then that's another problem. And then you should make a note of that and give that feedback because this is what they should have there.
Monica, when I go and vote, and I just like I don't want to mock anyone,
Right.
but could I ask them when I go and vote and actually see if uh they have that stuff there?
Yeah, you could go and ask. Maybe you use it, maybe you don't, but you could ask them to see what they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else before we move on? Yes, Takara?
In a case of accessibility, like my mom sometimes has a bit of trouble walking. Are there chairs there to help too?
Yes, it depends on what place you go to vote.
Mm-hmm. I'm really happy for that.
Thank you,
And I
Takara.
do know that they do have the large print ballots too. And large pencils.
Thank you, Takara. Yes, Monica.
I was just going to add, Donna and Takara, that if you're not sure about whether the place where you're going, if it's accessible for you or for someone you know, you can call Elections Canada ahead of time and say, hey, you know what? Is it accessible? If you need certain things, ask them about it. And if they don't have what you need, they will arrange for you to vote at a different location.
Yes, Charles.
I think it's important that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that live in, like, say, small options or group homes or in the ILS program like I'm in, that they have their support with them in case, like, there was a situation down here, and I'm not going to get into it. The person wasn't allowed to vote. I think their support systems should be there with them in case that happens in the federal election, stating if someone says they can't vote, then their support's never there, and we're like, why not, and all this, and like to support them.
Yeah, just to add to that, if somebody's being refused to vote and not given the opportunity to vote by Elections Canada's workers, that definitely needs to be reported and stuff. So it doesn't even have to be a worker. Like if I went with my brother or somebody on the same day to vote, that those people can be witness to that as well. And that becomes a human rights issue, and that's a whole different story for another day. But yeah.
Because that happened down here in Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm. Which should have never happened.
Well, what election was it? I can't remember. You know more.
Yeah.
It
That's
was
okay.
it was a municipal election and it was reported, but I think Charles that like you said, that's going to be that could be a whole nother topic. You're right.
Yeah.
And reported, and one of the people were prevented to vote as long as the staff went into the booth with them, which is
no, they should be able to have their vote secret. And so I've been doing human rights complaints, and so I'd like to talk more about this with you guys later. And
Sure.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
because I think if we don't do human rights complaints around these issues, they're never going to be really dealt with. So, yeah, whole different story. So, I'm a little off topic.
We would love to set a meeting up with you sometime and we can talk more
Yeah.
about it.
For sure. Let's do that. Let's do that. After the meeting, I'll give you my phone number and stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Chris and Charles, I just want to add that you're right, that they can't say that someone with a disability doesn't have the right to vote. We all have the right to vote. That's why at the beginning we said there were 3 things. If you are a Canadian citizen, if you are 18 years of age or older, and if you have the right ID, then you have the right to vote. So we hope thanks for reminding us about that.
No problem. Is like really, I couldn't, when you asked that question, why is it important to vote? I couldn't think of anything. That's why I wasn't saying anything, but that's a really big thing for me. People with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. When Willa told me that, it blew my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we're good to move on. Do we have
Yep.
any other questions?
I see Millie's hand is up.
Okay, let's get her to ask.
Oh, okay, you are muted.
There we go. I'm actually Lori. Millie has kind of been listening off to the side. I have helped Millie vote twice as her staff member, her support worker. One time I went in and she wanted me in there with her. The other time she signaled that she didn't want me there. How does that work? Like, what do you as people who need the supports want from us as support workers is what I'm asking.
You follow their lead. What they need on that in that moment is how I would go about whether they need help or not. And so if they know what they need that day and they say they want you in there, but if they're comfortable enough to not have you in there that day, you just be there. You don't need to go into the voting box with them necessarily. So, yeah.
All right, we're going to move on.
There are many different ways to vote, and it's important to make a plan for voting. You can choose the way that works best for you. Let's look at the options. First, we can vote in person. We use many different spaces for voting in Canada. The first picture here is a school, and people are in the gym doing their vote. The second picture is in a laundromat. They have set up a polling station there. A polling station is what we call the place where we get to vote. Sometimes the polling stations are in a church or other public building. On election day, you can go to the polling station. To find where your polling station is and the time it is open, check the voter information card sent to you by mail. Or go to the website elections.ca and type in your postal code. It will tell you where to go to vote. Or you can call Elections Canada at 1-800-463-6868 and they will tell you where to go vote. You can also vote before the election day because sometimes people are busy on the day of the election. This is called advance polls. These start about 10 days before election day. The dates and addresses of your advance poll can be found on the voter information card sent to you by mail. Or you can go to the website elections.ca and type in your postal code. Or you can call Elections Canada. They will give you the location in your area. Your turn, Donna?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
You can also vote by going to an Elections Canada office before an election. You need to show your ID to an election worker. You will be given a special ballot voting kit. They will take you through the voting process. You can find the address of an Elections Canada office in your area on the website. You can also vote by mail. Elections Canada will provide you with a special ballot voting kit and an envelope. They will also pay for the postage. You just need to ask them for it before the election day. Call Election Canada at 1-800-463-6868 or go to Elections Canada website at electionscanada.ca. The deadline to apply to vote by mail is the Tuesday before Election Day, 6 p.m. Don't wait. You need to arrange this ahead of time. Does anyone have any questions about the different ways to vote? Yes, Charles.
It's kind of the same. Wouldn't it be the same voting process as in the provincial election to the federal?
No, I think that there's a different, I think.
Yeah, there's
But
different rules on what type of ID you can and can't use. And around the polling stations, I think there's different accessibility standards. So it's not the same in that sense as well. And so, yeah.
Also, the ballots might look different.
Mhm.
There's a lot of differences, yeah.
Yeah.
anyone else? All right. Do you, oh, yes, Charles?
So where I registered for the provincial election and I voted for the provincial election. Would I have to re-register federally?
No, I don't think so. Monica, would you like to add something?
What I would say is maybe. You probably are registered if you voted before in the federal election, but the best way to check is to either call them or go to the website, because those are two different registrations. So you should double check for the national one. We call the federal
Okay, thank you.
election. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Before we move on. Do you feel like you have the information you need to vote or the confidence? I see no hand raised, so we will move on. Oh,
Elections.
yes,
Oh, yeah,
Grace.
go ahead.
Michaela?
No, sorry, I was just hand reacting to what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
Ah, okay.
Thanks, Donna. You're doing a good job so far.
Thank you.
Election security. We just want to remind everyone that in our election system, they work to make sure the voting process is fair and safe. Election security is not about physical security, like having a security guard at the door. It's about protecting people against fraud. This is what we mean by election security. Staff check voter ID, keep track of who has already voted, use paper ballots for marking our vote, and we keep votes secret. This is all important. Okay, who do I vote for? That's up to you. You can find out who the candidates are in your riding by going to elections.ca website. If you type in your area code, it will list the people running in your area. The choice of who you vote for is up to you. Find out as much as you can about the candidates in your area. Read their information and ask for it in plain language. Tell them what issues are important to you. Think about the values you have and see which candidate shares your values. In the end, the choice is yours. Just get out and vote and make your voice heard. If you want to vote, the important thing to remember is that you need to have a plan. This is a voting checklist that People First Canada helped Elections Canada make. Our members helped put it together. You can get this from the Elections Canada website. Monica is going to put a link for this in the chat. This reminds you of the decisions you need to make. Let's have a look at the checklist. First, you have to choose when you're going to vote, and you check that off. Then you decide what kind of ID you're going to need, and you check that off. The checklist also reminds you of what accessible tools you'll need and any other actions you might want to take before the election. We hope that everyone uses this to remind you to make a plan to vote. Does anyone have any questions right now?
Chris, do you want to maybe just read?
Yeah.
We didn't think of this, but why don't we read out these things so they know, like, those are the options, you can
Yep.
check it off if you want it.
Yeah, so large grip pencil, magnifying glass, support from Elections Canada staff, my own support person, list of candidates in large print, Braille voting template, only on election day. So what if you can't get out on election day to vote and you need Braille? That's interesting.
Good question, yeah.
I will call at least 1 week before election day to ask for one of these services. Vote by mail kit, sign language interpretation, polling place accessibility. Now, the day of, you should be able to call and ask if it's accessible before going. Is there anything else that I need? If you need help or have questions, let the poll staff know.
So this was
Oh.
the first part of it. Maybe we could.
Yeah, go over that real quick. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I plan to vote. Okay, this is my plan for voting. I plan to vote in person on election day. I plan to vote in person at an advance poll, early voting. I plan to vote before election day by mail using a vote by mail kit. Okay. Identification ID for voting. I'm bringing my government issued ID with photo and address, driver's license. I am bringing 2 different types of ID with name and address. I don't have ID and I need to bring someone else along to vouch for me.
We're going to end by asking one more question. Why do you want to vote? On the screen, you see some people, first members from around the country. They are holding up a whiteboard that gives their reason why they are voting. One of them says, to use my voice. One says, I vote because I matter. Another one says, I want my voice and my opinions to be heard. What would you say? Does anyone want to share?
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, TJ wanted to ask a question earlier, but you may not have
Okay.
seen her
Yeah.
hand.
Go ahead.
All right,
Um,
we go to. Okay.
How do you vote if you do by mail? How do you get your ID if you vote by mail?
Well, that's we explained that you need to call ahead of time at Elections Canada office to let them know that you will be voting by mail.
Yeah. And as for the ID piece, I think it's a different process of proving who you are. Do you know more about that, Monica?
Yeah, I'm just looking it up here. So if you do want to vote by mail, Elections Canada will supply you with a special voting kit and an envelope, and they will also pay for postage. You just have to ask ahead of time. So you can call Elections Canada. We'll put the phone number in chat at the end, or we'll put that screen up again. Or you can go to their website and ask them to send it to you, and then you'll send it in the mail. You just have to vote ahead of time if you're sending it in the mail.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Jonathan?
Okay. Yeah, and also another reason that you're supposed to that you should vote, I should say, better word, is also, yes, you all, have opinions of who should be where, but as we've all said before, if you don't vote, the opinion is like, it's like this. It's like you don't vote, but you have the opinion of, okay, this person shouldn't be in charge. It doesn't work. The two don't go together. If you vote and you say, okay, now I don't like the person who's in charge here in the country. Okay, it makes sense because you at least voted.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anyone else would like to share? All right, we're going to move on.
Can I show that picture again? Can I show
Yes.
that slide again?
Yes.
I want to see, do you guys recognize people in this slide? I think some of you are on the screen today.
Yeah, I think I see Kevin, Tina, and Takara for sure. And is that just me or am I thinking Patty?
Yeah,
Now,
it is Patty.
Is that Ben or Chris in the top right?
Neither of us.
Wait a minute.
That's
Heidi.
Shane.
Oh, Shane. Yeah.
Oh, Shane did.
Shane.
That's
And
the
then
only one
Heidi's in the middle. Yeah. And then Heidi.
Nah, because I noticed Kevin, Tina, and Patty on the bottom easily, and I'm like, okay, that looks like Takara Lockyer on the top on one of the pictures as well. So I was just trying to figure out the other two.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tina on the left-hand side, it looks like.
Yep.
So People First is actually going to be using some of these pictures for a social media campaign. So you'll see some of them on Facebook. So look for them and like them and share them when you see them.
Yeah.
Yes, Charles?
Can we just jump back to the last
Also-
slide before we go on?
This one?
Oh,
Also,
sure.
I wanted to bring up something what Monica said. Down here in Nova Scotia, we're doing a little, correct me if I'm wrong, we're doing a mock voting in 3 different chapters on April 11th for the election.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right. All of these things are true. Think about your own reason for voting and make your plan to vote.
Okay. So we're just going to go to that last slide and I'll read that last slide first, Monica. Yeah. So I just want to remind everyone that the election is on April 28th and that this is the information. If you need to go to the electionscanada.ca and stuff for information, it's right here. And yeah, and then we'll move on. Thank you very much for listening today. Thank you for Frank for translating today. Thank you to Monica and Carmen for helping with the webinar today. Thank you to my co-presenter, Donna. Good luck, everyone. Remember to get out and vote on April 28th.